Hey everyone, I'm Leonardo Anlar, and this is my first video on YouTube. And the whole purpose of this series is to play a rapid chess game every day or every other day, and then both to give you like my own human perspective before I use the engine, as well as what happened after I used the engine. Yep, and to give you an idea of the rating, so this is like the original game. This was a rapid game, 15-minute, 10-second increment. This was his rating. This is my rating. And yeah, let's get to it. Okay, so this opening was pretty standard. Um, Here I was a little bit wondering what happened um, if I played d5 right away versus preparing it with the knight f6, and that did lead to some like pretty interesting variations where black is kind of down a pawn, but he has enough compensation so that even though he's slightly worse, like if it was an engine versus engine match, they would draw it, and that analysis is kind of like here in gray. But um, yeah, so we have this. And then he played d4 here. So at this point, my main decision I had to make was whether I take this pawn right away or I play bishop b4 here. Because the whole idea is to like if I get this bishop out quicker, once I take these pawns, there's an open line here to white's king. So if I'm kind of one step closer to castling, maybe I can like get my rook on that open file quicker. That was the reasoning. And here, as you can see, though, this move ends up being kind of a little bit of a mistake. And like this is very minor, though, stuff. Like, for instance, and the reason why is if white plays bishop d2, he'll get a slight lead in development. And for instance, so how you could think about this. So here I have black has one developed piece, right? Versus white zero. Um, so here, after this sequence, if a white goes bishop t2 and white takes with the queen, now what we have is it's my turn again. But the point is here, instead of having like 1-0 development advantage in terms of pieces developed, it's more like 1-1. Now the queen is not in a particularly good square, but this exchange has helped white versus like if I just take this pawn right away, you see that black still keeps like a one piece developed versus zero pieces developed for white. So that's kind of the reasoning uh, why bishop b4 isn't the right move. And here Stockfish is giving them about equal, but I've done this analysis not on chess.com, but because chess.com, it can't use your computer's like all of its power. So if you let this sit, uh, you'll find, and that analysis is posted here because I copied and pasted from a different program. But you'll find here that yes, so that one moment, yeah, you'll find that e takes d4 was a little bit better. Yeah, so here you're seeing a centipon advantage of negative 0.08, depth 43. So I really let this run. And then versus bishop b4 is 43 depth. It's a very small advantage for white. So that's like if you really let this thing run. But anyway, minor details. So he plays knight c3. And during the game, I thought this was a little bit better than bishop d2 because it's like because knights are a little bit worse than bishops. So if he can get me to trade my bishop for his knight, that's a win for him. Um, but anyway, here I didn't want to take his d pawn because this like after this my bad after this exchange, you see that his dark square bishop now has an open diagonal. So that was something I didn't like, but at the same time over here, like I kind of have to defend this pawn or play e4. During the game, I didn't consider e4, and I really should have. But it turns out after e4, uh, this is a slight mistake for black. And basically, the reason for this is, and I've learned this from watching Anders Toth, is you always want to be making developing moves. If you're not making developing moves, then those moves better have a pretty darn good purpose. Otherwise, it's you just wasted a move for nothing. And here, my idea here was to maybe like bind white and kind of limit his space. type of thing. But it turns out that even though those were my intentions, they don't really come to fruition. And white basically just gets like a free tempo in because black, well, a free tempo as in black didn't develop, so white's able to be like one tempo ahead of when where they usually would be. So that was pretty interesting. So over here, my main decision was, do I play d5 and try to get all my pieces out? I like d5 over d6 because d6 is a little bit more passive. So basically my main dilemma here was, do I go d5 or castle and then play d5? The reason why I chose to castle was if I went d5 right away, he can play queen a4, forking my king and my bishop. In that case, I have to play knight c6 and leaving the knight out there. Like, you never want your knights in front of your c pawns in these. Like, at least that's what everybody says. So I wanted to avoid that. So here I castled. Also, I didn't want to throw in this queen check because that helps him develop. Like, his bishop, like, wants to go here anyway, and then after white castles, he's gonna put on a rook on this e file, and having like this queen over here, like in line with that rook, like I don't know, like a couple of moves down the road, that was kind of annoying. So I didn't play queen e7 here. Instead, I castled. Here he makes normal developing moves. You can either go rook e8 or a d5 here. I went rook e8, and then he blocks with his bishop, and here I go d5. He castles. Yes, and this was my first real mistake of the game. So my thought process behind d takes c4 was like if you just look at this game, like, well, I've watched a bunch of engine games before, and this type of structures tend to lead to draws. So I was like, I don't want to draw. I want some imbalance. So if I take this pawn, uh, we have an isolated pawn, queen pawn structure, so I could maybe like play against this. However, what I undervalued here, and the reason why this move is a mistake, is here this bishop isn't doing much. Like, um, it's not like threatening anything. It's not like pointing towards black's king. But after this move, this improved the positioning of the bishop, and actually right now white is threatening it to win a pawn. He can play bishop takes f7, and after I take it, he can fork my queen and my bishop by playing queen b3. And already, like, I didn't really like this, so this was a mistake. What I should have done, and what the engine recommends at high depths, is either playing bishop e6 to kind of develop my last piece and kind of threaten to win this pawn. And the second move, which was I found very interesting and counterintuitive, was knight c6. And because I was thinking, why am I putting my knight here? Generally, you don't want your knights in front of your c pawns, but it turns out, like here, if I go forward a little bit, I think this is Stockfish's main lines. Um, Or okay, this is not Stockfish's. Stockfish's main line is in the analysis somewhere, but like sometimes when I'm like fooling around, or not fooling around, just putting stuff in, that takes like priority if you scroll left or right. But like for instance, if I play knight c6 was recommended, one of the recommended moves, and the whole idea here is, like white center kind of needs to be attacked, so I guess attack it like right away by playing knight c6, instead of um, like doing what I did, which is just helping white get his pieces to better squares. Here I was thinking, like if I couldn't use the engine at all, I would have played like c6 in retrospect, because this kind of like supports the center a little bit, and at least I get to keep my bishop here. And let's see, it's giving this 0.58 versus what I played is like 0.67. So even if I played like c6, that would have been a better move. But anyway, so we have this in here. I really didn't know what to do. I didn't want to play bishop takes knight, but I couldn't uh, during the game I couldn't find something better to do. Um, in hindsight, like if I couldn't use the engine again, I probably would have played like bishop um here, um to at least keep the bishop pair. But then again, yeah, white doesn't like this, or black, the computer doesn't like that. Yeah, so um I really had to do something here to kind of guard this threat. So I decided to take. and this improves White's makes his weakness on d4 a little bit like less weak. I think this is like called the um, hanging pawn structure, or maybe with the hanging pawn structure, the c pawn wouldn't be here. I don't know, but anyway, that's like technical details. So here, I wanted to just get developed like ASAP because I knew like with these two bishops here, like I can get like attacked and it's just not going to be fun. So I played bishop e6. He played bishop d3. Which looked like the right move to me in the game. It's interesting that Stockfish recommends taking my bishop here because this kind of helps develop my rook. But okay. So after this, I play knight d7. So my main decision point here was, do I go h6 or knight d7? Generally, development moves are better than like non-developing moves, because here I need to only play h6 if bishop g5 is a threat, um, which I didn't really think so. Like if you put h6 here, you can see the computer evaluation increases slightly versus knight d7. Um, I believe it likes this move a little bit better. And again, this is like low depth stockfish. Like anything below 25 is like kind of iffy. If you let this run for like 30 or 35 depth, it likes knight d7 better, and you can kind of see that in the analysis. But anyway, I'm getting a bit repetitive. So here he played h3. I didn't like h3 because I feel like it kind of left me off the hook. Like I'm not gonna play bishop g4 because if I do that, I was thinking he could play h3 and then maybe even g4, and that way my bishop has to go to this square, and then he can like take my bishop, and I think the structural change would have been a little bit more advantageous to him, which is why I didn't do it. Um, but anyway, so here I played c5, and I felt really good about playing c5. I was like, okay, I'm gonna open this file up for my rooks. I'm gonna like get my pieces more active and hopefully equalize. So here he played bishop g5, and so what I decided to do here is play h6. The reasoning being, if he takes my knight, then he gets rid of his bishop here, and this improves the positioning of this knight. And even though this pawn then isn't defended, like if he takes it, you have two isolated pawns on the same file. Like one of these pawns, I'm gonna win back. So I play this, and also this does create a little bit of lift for my king. The reason why I didn't like it as much before is because like it doesn't really do anything. Like white can do whatever he wants here. It forces white to do something with the bishop, which is why it's better. So here what I did is I played queen a5, attacking the pawn. He plays queen c2, and here what was interesting is Stockfish recommends c4. C4 was a move like I totally missed during the game. Like this idea, I'm like, why release the tension? Um, but it turns out like if you play c4, like you kind of get almost like a 3 versus 2 on the queen side, and it restricts white. So it's kind of better in that sense. Um, and that was kind of a pretty interesting idea that I hadn't been exposed to before, which was interesting. But I played rook c8, get your rook on the same file as the queen, and threaten to take the pawn. And then he goes queen b2, and here what I should have done um is well, of course I can go c4 again. Now the move I played is b6, and with b6 I was like, you know what, let me just defend my weakness. Maybe like if my knight ever lands on c5, like it's supported by a pawn, which is nice. But this move again, it's not a developing move. It doesn't like, or even more than a developing move, like it's kind of if you can get away with not playing b6, it's better. And so for instance, if I did c takes d4, and what I was thinking during the game, I was scared of his queen taking this and like wrecking some havoc here. So I didn't want to get into this, but it turns out after like d takes c3, black has this pawn that's really close to like you know getting promoted. Now, during the game, I thought this pawn might be more of a weakness than a strength, and that was kind of like a misevaluation on my part during the game. But okay, so he plays b6, knight takes c5, and there's a really interesting tactic here. Oh, and by the way, before I get to the tactic, when he played this, I felt good, in the sense like I'm a little bit cramped, right? He has more space than I do. So if we trade pieces, it's better for me. And after this, my black knight comes to this like nice white square on d5. So like this just the knight um it's just better there. But it turns out there's this really interesting move I could have played, c4. This is kind of like danger levels, right? As Levy says. But and the idea here is if we like take um and let's say like he also takes this, um I can like come here, um maybe even rook takes is fine, but queen is even better cuz um this again it helps get this pawn, one step closer to promotion. And then also if white just decides to take uh this bishop, because he can either take the knight or take the pawn. Um, Once I take the bishop and he recaptures, I'm threatening the rook. And also, if I capture the other way, which is doable, I'm threatening his bishop over here laterally, which was pretty cool. But again, like I totally missed c4 here, and that would have given me a good position. Um, but this is still fine, I guess. And here, c4 is a mistake. So the thing is, so this gives a nice juicy square on this d4 square, which is nice. Um, Also, my bishop is attacking this pawn now, so it just like my knight kind of like this just gives better squares for my knight in the future. Like it can come to this d5 square, or maybe um yeah, like I guess this move doesn't really help white that much. So here I was thinking either b4 and then c6 and then d4, or coming in this way. During the game, I kind of wanted to play here just so my knight's closer to the king side and maybe something that can happen. When I thought about this game more before I used the engine, I thought b4 would have been better, like in hindsight, because it's like, oh, okay, at least my knight's gonna come to this square, and then it's just gonna be really annoying for white, because then he can only get rid of it with the bishop. If you ignore, the rooks, the queen, and the light square bishop, because the light square bishop can never come here. And then he has to play like f4 and then bring the bishop here. But if he does that, like he weakens his king side a little bit. So maybe I can like do something like that. But anyway, what's interesting is Stockfish does like knight b4 better. But okay, this happens, and now I have a decision of whether to trade the light square bishop or not. So here I felt a little bit scared because I'm like, okay, like he has the two bishops. Let me like just get rid of them. Um, so I guess taking the bishop wasn't the right choice here, because I guess you can take it anytime, right? Because this bishop is pretty bad here. But again, could have been better played on my part. And then here, what I decided to do, so queen a5. So the reasoning here is let's attack the pawn. Let's also keep putting pressure here, and yada yada yada. So here he played rook c1, and here I had like I just had like probably I like a very embarrassing moment. I just blundered, because in my mind I was like, oh okay, like before white moved, I was like, if he moves this rook, this pawn is gonna be like undefended. So I thought my bishop and my queen like lined up on it, but they clearly didn't. And yeah, and the downside is when I was playing this, I knew that I had the advantage because I was like, these pawns are weak. This guy, he was playing like really quickly, by the way, like at the end of it. Um, like basically before that blunder, um, yeah, he had like 11 minutes and 12 seconds left. I had like 1 minute, so it was really annoying playing against someone who's just blitzing out like all of his moves. And then he was playing like pretty quickly until like I kind of like got the advantage at some point, or at least like it was equal. So and then he started slowing down, but I just like to think a lot and like be really accurate, and that's kind of a weakness of mine. But anyway, what was really interesting here is I sort of played b5, and what I noticed here is this queen and rook are aligned. So I was like, okay, if I can get a bishop here, maybe I could do something, but that just doesn't work because like white can just take the bishop. But if I play b5 anyway, what I missed during the game is this lateral like thing, or this lateral avenue. So like in this case, white's bishop is just hanging. So I just missed that. But yeah, like I haven't played rapid chess for like 4 months, so I think I just need to get used to like just time management, which has always been a weakness of mine, and like fix that. Because like tactically, I can get like 37 in Puzzle Rush, so like my tactics are I think a little bit like good, or like for my rating range, even though like this is just an inexcusable blunder. So I just have to, I guess, get good at time management and just try not to panic in these situations. But yeah, hopefully you guys got something out of it, and the link to all this analysis will be posted at the in the description sections section. Thanks. Bye bye.